Hello everyone, I am Eclipsemon. As I grew up and played more and more video games, I realized that there is one type of level that I usually enjoy quite a lot. Basically, I am quite a fire and lava level enjoyer. Because of that, I think it would be interesting if I talked about 10 of my favorite fire or lava levels in gaming. Naturally, you might wonder what I consider to be a fire or a lava level. First, obviously, that level should have fire or lava in it. I also accept levels that take place around a volcano, even if they don't have fire or lava. Those levels are often underwhelming anyway, so it's not like it matters. Second, there isn't really a limit to what I consider to be a level. I can include a single level with fire or lava on it, but I can also include an entire world if I want to. It can be a platforming level, an area in our RPG, a racetrack, a Mario Party board, anything is fair game. I also have an extra rule that for variety's sake, I should have only one level per franchise. What I consider to be a separate franchise is up to me. With all that being said, let's get started. I think a good place to start with this list is with a level that embodies everything I often love about fire and lava levels, that is good enough to be on this list, but not good to the point that having it at the bottom of the top 10 would be an outrage. Thankfully, Magma Mine fits that bill perfectly. Maybe some of you didn't expect a Mario Party 9 board to be on the list, but hey, this is how things turned out, I guess. I will say it up front, the reason why this board isn't higher on the list is because it is a Mario Party board that uses the car mechanic. I think Mario Party 9 is actually a pretty enjoyable game, but the board gameplay is not the reason why. That's probably a topic for another day, but for now, what you need to know is that I think the car mechanic in Mario Party 9 and 10 offers way less strategic plays than the classic formula. That being said, Magma Mines is pretty much the best of what the car formula has to offer. This board starts at the bottom of the volcano and it ends at the surface, so you are basically climbing up the inside of a volcano. And that's already a cool concept for a linear board. One of the board's mechanic is the which way wheel, and this is probably the Mario Party 9 board that allows for the most strategy. When there is a fork in the road, instead of the captain simply choosing what path to take, every player chooses one of the two paths and then we spin a wheel, and who the wheel lands on determines what path to take. This means that even when it's not your turn, you actually have an influence over what can happen on the board. And that's really cool. And then, after the first boss of the board is defeated, the main gimmick of the board happens. The lava rises, and if the car touches the lava when you are the captain, you lose half of your mini stars. Considering the amount of mini stars determines who is the superstar at the end, you can imagine getting hit by the lava is a pretty bad thing. I love levels where you escape rising lava, usually from the inside of a volcano, and the fact they implemented this kind of event in a Mario Party board is not only really cool, but also something that would be impossible to do with the classic formula, which really shows how this board in particular did its best with the board formula of this game, despite it not being all that great. And of course, you can make some strategies with the rising lava. You can use high rolling dices to not be caught up by the lava, or you use low rolling dices to try and punish the person right behind you in the turn order. Too bad you don't have control on who is rolling after you outside two-player mode, or on whether or not you even get special dice blocks. But like I said, the core formula has its limits. Other than that, the atmosphere is excellent, just like most Mario Party 9 board. The fact that before the end of the board you have a versus space sandwich between Bowser spaces can create some chaos as you try to get the captain bonus for the final minigame. The bosses for solo mode, Spike and Chain Chomp, are pretty cool bosses where you need to make quick decisions before your opponents. And the music is legit my favorite in the entire Mario Party franchise. Seriously, it's such a bop. Overall, Magma Mine is a perfect way to make a volcano level out of the core formula. That being said, the only Mario Party games I played so far are 2 and 9 and Superstars, and I bet that if I played Mario Party 7, Bowser's Enchanted Inferno would be on this list instead. For now though, I am happy to talk about this neat board that is only held back by Mario Party 9's questionable car mechanic. Okay, this next entry probably will be the most controversial of the entire list. So, Chaos Island isn't the island in Sonic Frontiers that has the best reputation, to say the least, but hear me out. You see, some people hate that island because it is pretty annoying to navigate, and this is true, and I totally see why someone wouldn't like that. Getting from one point of the island to the other is less straightforward than any other island in the game. There are smaller islands you need to use specific sets of rails to get to. The uneven terrain can send you flying in directions you don't want to. The ice limits your mobility, and the lava kills you in one hit and make you go back in the latest save point, which could be very far back if you didn't save manually in a while, and that the autosave didn't trigger in a while as well. There are many annoying things that can make Chaos Island a pain to go through. However, it is specifically because this island is so difficult to navigate through that once you become the master of this environment, it becomes extremely fun and rewarding to go through. You learn to dodge that lava, you can use the drop dash to climb that ice, you learn to use the uneven terrain to your advantage, and fly over a big chunk of the area you want to traverse. You can even use those bird enemies to fly over some big gaps as well. Chaos Island is a typical Sonic level taken to the extreme. When you first play it, it can be annoying, but once you become good at traversing it, this is where it becomes engaging and fun. Also, Chaos Island is full of memorable landmarks and set pieces. The ruins in the bottom left of the map, the remains of the giant Eggman robot, the underground passage to one of the mini islands, the escape from night, that tower full of lasers, that one island with a fortress appearing when you get close to the cyberspace portal, that big snowy mountain with Spider at the top. In fact, Fortress and Spider are just really cool bosses when they show up. My favorite part of the map is probably the platforming section that leads to the 6th Emerald. It's just a big platforming gauntlet that makes you go higher and higher into the sky before finding the Emerald at the highest point of the island. And let's not forget about Knight, who is my favorite Titan fight in the entire game. Even the atmosphere of this island is my favorite in the game. I love how absolutely deserted the island feels, with its great color palette and dramatic music. And this is just how Chaos Island was before Update 2, by the way. Once you unlock the spin dash, this entire island full of uneven terrain becomes a playground where you can launch yourself high in the air and reach any point of the island quickly. That being said, this level is only number 9 for a reason. I appreciate the fact this island isn't super easy to traverse, but I have to admit they went too far. I think Iris Island was really the island that got the balance right by being just hard enough to traverse to not be annoying, but still making you want to pull off techniques and master the level design. This is also the island where random boost panels constantly forces you into random 2D platforming sections you don't necessarily want to be in. And that's annoying no matter which way you look at it. Also, that pinball table right before night might as well be the worst part of the entire game. Who thought having to do this many points in pinball to progress in the main story was a good idea? Overall, though, I legit really enjoy Chaos Island, and I'm tired of pretending I don't. Next, we have the one RPG area on this list. I have a hard time to determine which area in Undertale is my favorite, because Snowdin, Waterfall, and Hotland all stands out in different ways. Snowdin offers the best character interactions and funniest moments. Waterfall offers the best atmosphere and best secrets. But what does Hotland have, you might ask? Well, Hotland offers the most challenging encounters and trickiest puzzles in the game. When I think of the trickiest puzzles in Undertale, my mind always comes back to those arrow jump pads in Hotland. The minigames with Mettaton also makes you think and act more than similar challenges in this game. This area also has easily the hardest regular enemy encounters in the game. And Moffat is easily the hardest fight in the game during a true pacifist run if you don't eat a spider pastry in front of her. And it's not only a challenge, but it's also a very fun fight with a unique mechanic. And it's not like Hotland doesn't also stand out in other areas than encounters and puzzles. Mettaton and Alphys bring a lot of hilarious moments to your journey through this area. Let's also not forget about the music. Another Medium is just one of the many amazing songs Undertale has to offer. It truly slaps. Also, some people, including me, would argue that the core is also part of Hotland. And to be clear, that debate doesn't really matter in the context of this list, since I would rank Hotland in the same spot either way. But if the core is indeed part of Hotland, we just get even more challenging encounters and the best boss fight in the game on top of everything I mentioned earlier. So yeah, Hotland is a very neat place you can explore through the underground. So, a problem with making fire or lava levels is that this is a type of level we see a lot in video games. I mean, there is a reason why I managed to make a top 10 about this kind of level in the first place. Therefore, it can be hard for your fire or lava level to stand out among the crowd. However, nothing prevents you from making something different from the typical fire or lava level. And no level exemplifies that more than Mount Volbono. Super Mario Odyssey is a game kind of known for taking cliché level tropes and putting a twist on it, but the Luncheon Kingdom is probably the biggest example of it. Basically, they took a volcano level and were like, what if we made it food themed? That's a genius idea that makes this level truly unique, but it is also very fun to play through. The Poloboo is a very fun capture that makes lava traversal easier. Kukatil is a fun and creative boss. The Volbonians are probably some of my favorite kingdom habitants in the game, and I really like the Pan Bros. There are so many fun moons to collect. Some highlights include that 2D section that takes place under rolling vegetables, jumping from the pot on top of the volcano as a Poloboo, to then land in a smaller pot in the town. And the Koopa race is the best in the game. Seriously, this Koopa race really highlights how many speedrunning techniques you can use to traverse this kingdom faster, and I love that. It also has nice visuals and music, and it's overall a great time. Something you need to know about me is that I don't think making a linear level is a bad thing. There are many levels or even full games that are amazing despite being linear. And Ridley's Lair from Super Metroid is an excellent example of that. Super Metroid is one of the first games most people think of when talking about Metroidvanias. And Metroidvanias are pretty much characterized by how they are less linear and more based on exploration than a linear platformer. Despite that, Ridley's Lair from Super Metroid is probably my favorite area in the entire game, and it's also one of the most linear areas in the Metroid franchise. First, being the most linear area in a mostly non-linear game makes Ridley's Lair stand out from the pack. It's for similar reasons that I really like the Bowser Kingdom from Super Mario Odyssey, for example. Second, this area is easily the most intense in the game, with the toughest enemies in the game and some platforming challenges that can be decently challenging. The music sells the intensity of the level even more, and in fact, it might be my favorite song in the Metroid franchise. There is also a mini-boss fight against Chozo's statue, which is much harder than the one you had to fight near the beginning of the game. And of course, I can't forget the fight against Ridley. It's the toughest fight in the game, and finally being able to beat him after losing to him in the intro of the game is super satisfying. On top of that, there are still optional rooms to collect some extra items, so there is still some exploration provided despite the area's linearity. One thing I love with Fire and Lava levels is that they are often super intense, and Ridley's Lair does that perfectly. Something interesting about the Mega Man X franchise is that the Fire Maverick stages are the definition of hit or miss. On one end, you have the Dunkin' Donut Gauntlet, the level with this dude that loves to express his desire to burn the floor, and the hour-long Rising Platforms autoscroller. But on the other end, you have some of my favorite levels in the franchise. And in the end, I chose Magma Dragoon stage, the volcano from Mega Man X4, to be on this list. First, the music of this level slaps. Probably one of my favorite songs from this game. What is it with fire and lava levels having banging tunes? Seriously. The level itself is also excellent, and quite intense with many meteors and fire obstacles to dodge. There is some tight platforming over lava as well. My favorite part of the level is that one part with crumbling platforms with meteors destroying them. It forces you to act quickly, and it's a section that flows extremely well. There is also a ride armor in this level, and what makes this particular ride armor stand out is that you can carry it to the boss room, meaning you can use it against Magma Dragoon himself. Speaking of Magma Dragoon, when you are a true Giga Chad and don't use his weakness against him, his fight is absolutely incredible, especially as Zero. One of the best fights in Mega Man history. Two Giga Chads never uses double cycle in this fight outside the boss rush, and are always searching for a true fight, just like Magma Dragoon himself, who has done all of this only to get the chance to get a good fight against X or Zero. Overall, this is just an excellent stage, true and true. Here I am talking about Mario Kart again. Woohoo! However, this time it is not to talk about Wave 6 of the Booster Course Pass. You might think this entry will be a Bowser Castle, and to be fair, I really love most Bowser Castles. I like them more than Rainbow Roads generally. However, Grumble Volcano is just too good, man. Grumble Volcano is perhaps the incarnation of what I love about lava levels. This track is intensity incarnate. The music and visuals already show that it's not a track you should mess around with. There are several sharp turns and multiple fireballs and fire snakes to avoid, making it a pretty difficult track with a bigger variety of obstacles than many tracks hoped they would have. It's a top 5 of this track in Wii, and while it is easier in 8, it's still one of the harder retro tracks in the game. All of this would be enough to make Grumble Volcano a solid track, but it would only be a basic level. However, that's where the crumbling floor comes in. Around the end of lap 2, parts of the track fall into the lava. Not only does this make it easier to fall off the track and makes the track more intense, but it is a super unique gimmick that we don't really see in any other Mario Kart tracks, or at least not to the same extent. This makes Grumble Volcano one of the most unique tracks in the franchise, despite not having the most unique theming. And I said the crumbling fort makes the track harder, but in the Mario Kart 8 remake of the track, there is a shortcut at the end of the track that only opens up when a certain rock blocking the path is removed, which is a creative way to expand on that gimmick. Overall, I absolutely love Grumble Volcano. It's probably my favorite track from Mario Kart Wii, and probably a top 5 track in Mario Kart 8. It's also worth noting that it is one of the few Mario Kart Wii tracks that gets criticized more than the rest. So, for those wondering what the hell that tier list is, you'll find out in a future video. But maybe you are able to guess it by yourself. A somewhat recurring trope in video game level is mixing fire and ice together. I have known this trope ever since I discovered Super Mario Galaxy a long time ago, and some people probably have known this trope for even longer thanks to games like Banjo-Tooie. And it turns out one of those kinds of levels made it into the list. So Celeste has many amazing levels, and the core is pretty much no exception. After completing the main game, if you manage to collect 4 hidden hearts, you can now play Chapter 8 of Celeste, the core. Do not be confused with Undertale's core. When you first start the level, it is already interesting. Throughout most of Celeste, you can do one air dash, and in Chapter 7 and onwards, which includes this level, you can do 2 of them thanks to your ability to accept your anxiety. Before Chapter 8, whenever you touch the ground, you refresh your air dashes. However, starting in Chapter 8, you can no longer do that. The only way to refresh your air dashes is to either touch those green crystals or to change screens. This adds some additional challenge to the level and makes you approach each platforming section differently than normal. And this is great. And then there is the level itself. At the start, you see lots of fire. You know, the thing a level needs to be on this list. There are some conveyor belt walls, fireballs and obstacles to avoid, and those platforms that give you momentum before destroying themselves. And then you meet one of those buttons. And when you run into them, the level entirely freezes over. The platforms no longer give you momentum anymore, and simply crumble. Those conveyor belt walls become frozen walls that you can wall jump on, but can cling on. And those fireballs no longer hurt you and can be used as bouncing platforms. And later on in the level, there are sections where you need to switch from fire to ice in the middle of a platforming section in order to advance and adapt accordingly. And at the middle of the level, you see rising lava. And like I said back with Magma Mines, I really love rising lava in levels. Also, for those who wonder, I don't know exactly what the lava turns into when you switch the level to ice, but that still gives you so frozen water, I guess? And now you pretty much need to do everything you did previously, but vertically, and you cannot take your time. And that's the awesome intensity I love in my lava levels. And then there is the final section. There is not only a lava floor, but a lava ceiling as well. When the level is hot, they rise. And when it's cold, it goes down. So basically, if you don't want the top or bottom of the screen to be entirely covered in lava, you need to switch from both modes constantly, even if you don't need it to go through a platforming section. And everything I mentioned throughout this level is used expertly and used in ways to truly challenge the player. Basically, it's the usual amazing level design you always expect in Celeste. And it wouldn't be Celeste without a mysterious introspective moment at the end of all this. Honestly, when making this video, I was thinking of having this level lower, but then I remembered how much of a masterpiece this level is, and now I think it truly deserves to be at this spot. I have already covered a Mega Man stage, so you might think we are done with Mega Man stages. And you would be right. However, nothing prevents me from talking about Gravity Circuit, baby! Woo! So Gravity Circuit is an indie game greatly inspired by Mega Man, and man is this game absolutely incredible. Don't be too surprised if it ends up being my game of the year for 2023. And now I get the chance to talk about this game by talking about Steelworks, the stage of Ray, the optic circuit. The main gimmick of this stage are those machines that shoot lasers. They activate when you are in their line of sight, and you see where lasers will go through before being fired. So there is never a point where you never see them coming, and it's always your fault if you aren't able to dodge them. That being said, it's not like they aren't a challenge to avoid. Sometimes they force you to act quickly or to be very precise with your platforming. The secret energy upgrade in particular being a super hard platforming segment you have to go through while dodging lasers. There are also some moving platforms that make for great platforming segments, but what's great is that later on they make you use the grappling hook under those moving platforms. You use them as hanging points all the while dodging obstacles. And just like every other levels from this game, there is also great enemy placement, great secrets, and many opportunities to go through the level fast if you want to. On top of all that, the music of the stage is probably my favorite song in the game, and the fight against Ray is exciting and intense and incorporates the lasers from the main level into it. The circuits always use the gimmicks from their stage into their fights, and I really love that. So yeah, go play Gravity Circuit, it's a good game. For the number one spot, we not only have an excellent fire level, we have an emotional experience. Ladies and gentlemen, here we have Scorch and Torch from Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. So first, the concept of this level is a concept I wish we saw more often in video games. Basically, you take an environment, in this case, a savanna, and you put it on fire! I think it's a cool idea to have a level where something that normally shouldn't be on fire ends up being on fire. And Scorch and Torch is basically that. Not only that, but there is also a unique gimmick with this stage. Many parts of the level are on fire, obviously. And I'm not talking about the background. Objects on the foreground like bushes and ropes are also burning, and the fire does hurt you, preventing you from interacting with them. However, there are some water berries you can use to put out the fire if you want to. Aside from that, there are also some tree benches that slowly gets burned down and disappear when you stand on them. In fact, some entire tree crumbles when you stand on them, because of the damage the fire did to them. There are multiple variations of fire enemies. There is some ground that produces fire when you stand on them, forcing you to act quickly. In fact, the enemies too can interact with that ground, making you want to avoid the ground they stand on. This isn't even mentioning the fireballs. This is a challenging level with multiple things to avoid and multiple mechanics to get familiar with, especially if you want to find all the secrets the level has to offer. This will already be enough to make it a level worthy of being on this list. But what put this level above everything else is the atmosphere and story this level tells. When you first entered World 3 of this game, it was a joyful savanna full of life. Then, one of the levels takes place in a tornado. A detail you can see is that some fire enemies are getting transported by that tornado. And when you enter Scorch and Torch, you realize this tornado caused far more damage to this wonderful savanna than you could have imagined. Because those fire enemies that flew all over the place now caused it to burn. All of this environment is getting destroyed by the fire. And even if you can't put out all of the fire, you want to put out as much as the fire as possible. And not only is the music of this level absolutely amazing, but unlike other fire level music, which would put most of its emphasis on how intense and cool the level is, the song Scorch and Torch basically tells you this beautiful environment is getting destroyed. There is nothing cool about this. And honestly, I think this is genius. It is rare to see a level bring this much emotions without telling any words, otherwise being an excellent level on its own. And for that, I think it deserves to be at the top of this list. And you, what are your favorite fire or lava levels in video games? Don't hesitate to leave a comment. I wouldn't be surprised if I forgot a level to talk about. I played way too many games. Until next time, I am Eclipsemon, and I wish you a good day, or night, or anything else.